community partner, but we understand that you might be thinking, I have nothing to do with this. So just kind of want to set the stage for what we're going to be talking through today. So the very first thing, I guess first, is everyone found it in their folder, like a one-sheet piece of paper? Okay, great. So this is going to outline, as I mentioned, the responsibilities of us as Second Harvest, and then the responsibilities of those community partners that we're working with in all of the communities where we have these mobile pantries. So this is a 2-year document. Again, Laura and Andy, we're going to be working with the right folks, with each of you, to get this signed, and it's going to be for 2 years. We've had these in the past. As Michelle alluded to with COVID, we were flexible, things kind of changed, so now we're getting ourselves back to a regular schedule so that we can be communicative and partnering, and we're clear on everyone's expectations. So we're going to first start out by walking through all of the responsibilities that we as Second Harvest as the food bank are committing to in this document. So the very first one, so these are all of them. They're also listed in your MOU. So next one, please. Yep. So the very first thing that Second Harvest is committing to, we are committing to delivering a variety of nutritional food from our available inventory and distributed in quantities in alignment with the number of households that are expected at all of the mobile pantries. So this little chart that I understand there's a lot of small text, but this is how we internally try to decide what food we're going to be sending you. And again, it's dependent on our inventory, which changes every single day. It's never the same. But what we do is we have a commitment that we're going to send at least 3 produce items, at least 2 calcium, 2 protein, 2 carb. If we have meal items available, we'll send them, and we will send a max of 2 what we're considering non-nutritious items. And so this is kind of, again, our inventory changes every single day. So it's never going to look the same every mobile, but this is how we kind of guide ourselves to figure out what can we pull from inventory and create an order to send to each mobile. Does that kind of make sense from our mindset? I'll pause there for questions because I know there's a lot of words up here. Not? Okay, well then we'll go to the next slide. Our next commitment is our coordinators, so Andy and Laura. You will always get a menu of our expected items that we'll be sending you in advance of your mobile. And this is our new chart that a lot of folks in this room may receive by email, the designated people. And as you can see, this then aligns with our internal commitment. So you're going to see this is a real example from a week or 2 ago from our Gaze Mills mobile. And you'll see we outline it by produce, the minimum 3. If we're able to send additional, you'll see them listed. Then calcium, protein, carbs, if we have any ready meals, and any non-nutritious items. So again, Katie, who will learn more about her job today, she's not physically here, but she's the one that's monitoring that inventory, seeing what we can put into these categories, creating this menu, and then creating that order that will go out to each of you. There is a chance once in a while that we send this to you and there's a last minute change on what you get. And there's a variety of factors on why that can happen. Sometimes, for example, maybe this jicama, when our quality control folks looked at it, they decided, you know what, we don't want to send that to the mobile because it's past its proper age of consumption. There are things like that that could change. Or maybe we were expecting, trying to think of a good example, lots and lots of peaches, and for whatever reason, our source that we were going to get them from, something changed. So by and large, this is what we're committing to, but we just want you to know there are unexpected and unintended changes that can happen on our end, which could influence a slight change to this and what you actually receive on the day of your mobile. Does anyone, I know this is a relatively new thing that we've started. Does anyone have questions about this? Okay. We, as Second Harvest, are also committing to providing food, delivering it to the location of the mobile, and unloading it. So what this includes is mainly it's our semi-trucks. We're bringing it to a location, to your mobile, and our drivers are the ones that are going to unload all of those pallets for you. We do that for several reasons. One, they're trained and certified for safety, and we want to ensure that no accidents happen. And so that's why we want to support you in that way. So we don't want anyone else who's, not certified with forklifts or anything to injure themselves. So we are also committing as Second Harvest to provide ongoing training, tools, and support to coordinators and leadership volunteers at all of the mobiles. So this looks like a variety of things. As Michelle mentioned, we recently made the shift as a food bank, and we now have Laura and Andy as dedicated staff assisting mobile pantries. And they are each assigned to a certain amount of counties, and in your folder, you have a map, so you can see kind of the counties that they're covering. So that's one really big way. You have a go-to person whenever you have questions or concerns. We also are committing to moving forward doing things like this, supporting you with resources, answering questions, things of that nature. We also have a newer staff member. It's a newer position here at the food bank. She's the Director of Volunteer Services. She's going to be talking to us later today, and she's going to be providing a lot more resources as well for all of you and your volunteers at the mobiles. So another thing that Second Harvest is committing to is, in order for us to be receiving a lot of the donated food that we're able to leverage and then distribute, we need to be a 501c3. And so we, again, as Second Harvest, are committing to maintaining that status so that we can be that go-through, receive that donated food, and provide it to all of you at the mobiles. So some of you may already be your own entity in 501c3, but some are not. And so Second Harvest, being kind of the parent of that, allows us to distribute that food to everyone. Another thing we're going to do is Second Harvest, we are going to publish our mobile pantry schedule. And I'll pause there to say that it's in a variety of places. If you haven't been, we have a brand new website that launched a few weeks ago. And quick kind of preview, during lunch, we'll be doing a virtual tour if anyone's interested at the end of lunch. So all of the information can be found on our website. We also have a phone app. And so if you or anyone that's coming to your mobile pantry is interested, they can download for free a Second Harvest app, and then you can find out when locations and times are of all of our mobiles. We will also register with 211, and that is, if you're not familiar, 211 is a resource line that is available in all parts of the US, and any individuals can call it and say, for example, where is a food pantry near me? And then because we at Second Harvest are registering all of our mobiles, if there's an individual in Richland Center that calls and says, I live in Richland Center, where are some resources near me? They'll be able to provide them the information of the mobile. So we commit to doing all of those types of communications on behalf of our mobiles. We are also providing the equipment that we have budgeted for and materials, and this is to ensure the safety of our food, our volunteers, and the guests. That's what's really important to us when we're thinking through certain things, that we know that you all and the guests are safe and the food itself is kept safe. And so Laura is going to be going over today a big list of things that we will be providing you, some of which are mandatory, and they're mandatory because they're going to be helping with the safety aspect. Other things are going to be optional because, to your earlier point, Bill, we understand that every mobile is different. We know that some are indoors, some are outdoors, some are in the morning, some are towards the evening, and all of those variables require different support. And so that's why some things everyone will get, but other things, depending on your operation, we're going to be able to support you in different ways. Another thing that Second Harvest is committing to doing is providing food share outreach. Some of you may be familiar at your mobiles. You may see a Second Harvest staff person that comes. They usually have little half-sheet flyers, and they talk to the guests waiting to receive food. These are what we call our food share outreach specialists, and they are there to provide information to the guests about food share, which is a federal benefit, as well as other resources. So maybe one of the food share outreach specialists is walking through the line, and that guest says, I'm here today. I know when this mobile occurs every month, but I could really use another mobile to go to. Can you tell me where that is? And they know a lot of the local resources to be able to offer to folks. So again, Second Harvest, we have a whole team of folks. They're also on that map in your folder, so you can kind of peek at the name of that person. If you haven't seen them, I'm sure you'll be seeing them soon. They're going to come and provide that information to those guests and support them in any other food resources that they may have questions about. We also, and this is one that we're actively working on, we at Second Harvest are committing to identifying a local partner agency to take leftovers. And we understand this is one of those things that is very different at all of our mobiles right now. Some mobiles have very well established connections so that if there's leftovers, we know where they're going. Other mobiles, that's an area that we need to work through. And so we at Second Harvest are committing, Andy and Laura will be your point people, to identifying those so that it isn't a scramble when there are leftovers at the end of your mobile. So, and this is a lot of text again. I'm sure we've seen this in winter. I'm not going to go through all the details, but what it's committing to is that if there's inclement weather, Second Harvest will collaborate with all of you to make those decisions and communicate appropriately if we need to cancel a mobile. Again, lots of small text, and a lot of it isn't necessarily relevant in summer because it's dependent on school districts. But what we want you to take away is it's a coordination between us and you. Of course, we're mainly Madison-based. We want to be hearing from you in advance. So if we're anticipating a snowstorm or a thunderstorm, Laura and Andy will be watching that weather. I'm sure you all will be watching that weather, and we'll be communicating. Sometimes, even if it's great in Richland Center, if there's a snowstorm happening in Madison, we still might have to cancel because our trucks can't leave Madison. Vice versa, it might be fine in Madison, but in Sparta, there's a snowstorm. And so, of course, we'd be communicating with you to know if we shouldn't proceed with that mobile. And Laura's going to jump in.
I just want to add one thing. Even though we have a weather policy and we're anticipating and everything, so it can get worse while you're at the mobile, or we don't want to have to cancel. So we'll do everything to not cancel. But what we can do is, and Bill will echo this, because this is a concern he's brought up a couple of different times. If we are expecting you to do registration and choice and all this stuff, but there's really bad weather, skip that. Just do whatever you need to do to make it happen quickly and safely for everybody. It's your prerogative as a coordinator to decide. It's not, and this has happened in Beloit a couple times. It started raining, and it doesn't make any sense to have someone standing outside with a paper thing asking people to roll down their windows. So even though our goal is to do that as often as possible, you are the one that's kind of responsible for the safety of your volunteers in that situation, and you have the authority to make that call.
Yep, thanks, Laura. Yeah. Okay, so those are, again, in this document, those are the responsibilities that we as a food bank are committing to as we partner with all of you. Now we're shifting to the section of the responsibilities of the community partner, and I'm just going to echo again that I understand that all of you have very different roles in this room, and so some of this may not be directly applicable to you, but Laura, Andy, myself, we're here to follow up with the needed people to walk through these, answer questions, things of that nature. So, again, they're in your document if that's an easier place to read them, but the first one is operate the mobile pantry as a choice model. And so this is exactly what we just talked about with Michelle, that we as a food bank, we're shifting back to that pre-pandemic idea of choice. So we'll be seeing that rolling out. And if there probably are folks in this room who's like, oh, I have that sounds very overwhelming to me. How am I going to figure that out? Well, Laura and Andy because we have a variety of mobiles that operate in very different ways, they've seen it done successfully in different ways. And so please vocalize that to us so we can say, hey, this might work. This is an idea. What will work for you? So just because we're saying choice doesn't mean it's supposed to look the same. It just has to be choice in general. Another responsibility will be assigning a coordinator to fulfill all the duties. So many of you here today are coordinators. I think we have 2 mobiles that we're seeking coordinators for, and again, it's in the packet, so if you know of anyone, let us know. We're here to support that. The on-site community partner and coordinator, you're committing to training all the other volunteers, giving them the applicable information, ensuring safety on site. Another commitment will be to collaborate with Second Harvest to secure an appropriate location. Of course, once you have a location established, that's fine. But once in a while, we have to shift that for a variety of reasons. And so just knowing that maintaining a site is part of that agreement. As we've already talked about, the on-site coordinator will help with the community partner to ensure safety of the food, the guests, and all of the volunteers. So safety is really important to us, and we want to ensure that. The community partner, that site where this is all happening, that will be the entity that will supply things like if chairs are needed or tables are needed, things for day of that second harvest wouldn't put on a truck and leave. So things of that nature. Another thing that we were doing pre-pandemic, but again, things kind of got loose for a variety of reasons, we're gonna be working with you on the food handler safety training. Again, to ensure food safety, we wanna be sure that folks have that background information, so when they're on site, they'll be able to identify if there's something that may not be complying with food safety. We will complete registration at the mobiles and then send it back to Pilar. So Laura, I believe, will be touching on that today, but again, there's if you're not familiar or unsure how to incorporate that into your mobile moving forward, please let us know. We are here to support you on these. Leftovers also comes up. So as I said, many mobiles already have an established relationship, and that's great. If you don't, that is something that is on our radar as Second Harvest. We are committed to finding you that local agency so that there can be that connection moving forward. So if you don't have that, feel free to let us know. We'll work with you on that. Another thing that's listed here is providing only Second Harvest food. The reason we have this goes back to the food safety. If a guest were to come to a mobile, receive, and it's a Second Harvest mobile, receive our Second Harvest food, but then receive something else that some person donated day of, we have no way of tracking that, ensuring food safety on that, and we wouldn't want to be liable for a food-borne illness outbreak because of that food that we just didn't have any part in distributing. And so for that reason alone, for food safety, we ask that you only distribute Second Harvest food. Yes?
Is there a procedure? Because I know I get calls, as a matter of fact, I had one yesterday. It said, we have this food, we'd like to bring it to your food pantry. And I have been saying, just call the main office at Second Harvest and see what they say. Is that the proper procedure, or?
The only other thing I would recommend is you can advise them to call their local actual pantry, the fixed site pantry. Because it's probably not gonna be a volume where they would have enough for everybody that comes to your mobile.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to throw in here is, when there is, an item that is maybe even not food, like in Adams, they've had socks to give away and mittens and things like that. We can give those things away as long as they're in a different area and it's like clearly marked, these did not come from Second Harvest, basically. So we'll work with you on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, a question about that, maybe there's others who can answer this. When you're doing the mobile and you run out of food, that then I'll just say it, we provided food to, we don't turn them away. We say, well, we're out. We've supplemented. So it puts maybe a little bit more on making sure that we aim a little higher in terms of our order then, because if, that's an issue for us.
Okay, so several things. Oh.
So Mark, you are at a pantry. So are you saying you're using the pantry food then?
Yes.
You're the only one that's like that.
So, but it brings up other things. One, so running out. If that is something that's a concern, we definitely want to adjust those numbers. And that's why it is essential to fill out those after reports, because then what Pilar does is she's able to see, okay, we sent 100 food for 100 households. You ran out, you ended up needing 108. So next time she's gonna ensure that that number reflects what you need. And so she's the one communicating in here internally to get the right amount of food ordered. If we don't hear back, we're guessing, which obviously could lead to food being running out.
And the other thing, there will be times when you run out, and it's because of something that happened in the community or whatever. And what we would like to see happen is that even when the food is gone, someone stay there on site for the cars that might still come through, explain, we ran out this time, we'll be more next time. In the meantime, call 211 and find out what other resources are very in the local area for them. So we don't want to just run out of food and hightail it out of there. Lana?
If you call 211 or go online, they will send you little cards that you can hand out to your clients.
Yes.
Which I did. I got 400 of them, and I handed out to every car. So now everybody knows that.
We'll get a
if you have
supply of
something,
those,
you
yeah.
Call
I
211.
think we should hand them out like quarterly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we actually
And they're
have some,
free.
so
We have some, yeah.
yeah, I can go grab what we have. Lots of questions.
Also, can the coordinator now increase the amount every month? I've been doing it, we're, like we were short last month and then I increased it by 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. We're seeing it bump up across the board, and it's small increments like that. And overshoot, I mean, if we get a good partner for the leftovers, then you can be even a little bit more liberal with your projection on that, because we know someone will come get that.
What do you do with the leftovers when it's not a complete household leftover? We've had some people, we're supposed to get 2.5 gallons of milk, they only wanted one, so we had maybe a case of milk. We don't report that anything other than it's okay.
We turn it over to the food bank.
Yeah.
You know, we used to, I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
The form that you filled out last, before COVID,
Right.
you were supposed to list all the individual things that were left over.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
So, we made a lot of, we don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to know the numbers to know how to move forward. That's why we're asking that. And so yes, you are the folks that are on the ground knowing kind of the climate. So we want to hear from you if you think that we're going to need more next time. But there were some more questions.
We get requests from like the school district, which is the main area we serve. Will do a drive, like the student council may do it as a project, because they're encouraged to do all these community help things. And so we've encouraged them to give like the paper goods that we don't normally get.
Oh.
And they've bagged them and tagged them that this is a donation from
Yep.
River Ridge.
Yep. And I think
that's fine.
Yes, I think that's perfect because we know it's not food and it's labeled that it's not from Second Harvest.
Okay. And then the other thing is that the mail service will collect on the mail room.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get that.
And that
But
comes.
if that's not labeled, we would have, we put up a sign that this is
Yeah,
from the.
we would want you to set up a separate table, and like after people have gotten all the food from us, they can go over and help themselves or something. I mean, I know there are a couple of places that regularly get some really nice food donations from local companies.
And we did look through those and did find some things that had an expiration date that had been quite a ways past, and weeded those out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I don't know why someone would do that. But
Yeah. Was there another question around all this? Yeah.
No, for us over in Beaver Dam, it's really hard to regulate the amount we get because 1 month you have 175 households, you have extra, so okay, let's drop it down. But then we'll end up with like 300 and a quarter next month.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly fluctuates anywhere between within 100 household degree.
Yep.
Well, err on the side of too much.
Too much,
Yeah.
which we try to do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That feeling that, oh.
Yeah.
We've been getting close to past 2 months of running out.
Well, and since most of the mobiles are a whole month apart, if you put in your after report in 3 days and then 2 weeks later something happens in the community and more people are coming, just email us or call us, we'll change that number.
Yeah.
We have up until like 3 days before to change it. So.
What's an after report? I'm just joking. Kind of usually lazy because I've had medical problems with my husband, but I get it in.
Great. Were there any other questions about that extra food? Okay. The next item that we ask that there are no, this is a requirement of us being a 501c3 and providing that donated food, that there are no, because of those federal regulations on that donated product, when the community partner, when you all are distributing that free food, absolutely no conditions can be implied. And so that means that you can't say, well, you have to volunteer to get the food, or you have to pray to get the food, or you have to do all these things. We have to keep it in whoever comes receives the food. We can't make folks do anything, believe what we believe, any of that. It's simply kind of human to human. We have this food and we're providing it to you. Is that?
Kind of part of that too is we will take people at face value. So if they say they need for another household or whatever, we don't need to question them, we'll just take them at face value and we'll give them what they need. Okay, I'll go into that a little bit more, because we have a proxy policy we can start, but, I just don't want you guys to be in the position to have to like question people or argue with them about, oh, do you really need this, or, you know.
And lastly, if there's time-sensitive information that a change is going to be required, let's say you do your distribution at a school and they're having a school picnic the day of our mobile, and we need to find a new location. As soon as you know such things, please communicate with Laura and Andy. It's really helpful for us to be able to proactively not only make those changes, communicate them out, make sure our truck drivers not only know where we're going, be able to get into parking lots. All of those things are what we're thinking about logistically. So if you perceive a change is going to be needed, let us know, please, as soon as you can. And so again, I know this was a lot of detailed information. We just wanted to cover it so that all of you are aware of what we're kind of agreeing to in this partnership. We, Andy, Laura, myself, will be working with all the folks that actually need to sign this, but you all have now seen it, have a copy. Any other questions?
Or we can give a copy to the community partner.
Yeah,
or they-
we need to
we'll
follow
take
up,
care of
yeah.
getting the right people to sign it. So that copy that you have is just for your reference.
Yep.
What if you don't have a sponsor? Then we're gonna be working on that. I was told the only problem I would have is if I wanted to quit, I had to find my own.
They said-
Yeah. That's a
Yep.
big part of having a community partner. Like, in Adams, the CWCAC has become the community partner. And the exec knows that if Bill gets fed up and quits, then he needs to find another, leadership volunteer to take that on and, provide continuity. I don't know anybody in Adams that did take me 5
Nobody's
years to
crazy
find
enough.
anybody that would do it before CWCAC joined. Oh my gosh, what a saga. So that's a really key function of the community partner. And, if the church is interested in becoming one, that's what I'll explain to them. This is, your responsibility is going to be the continuity of it.
So that's really your role.
Oh, you and I would work on. It is my role to secure the community partner with your input. Yeah.
I know, I tried several times myself to screw up to get fired, and they won't do that. For what?
Funny. Are there any other questions about this MOU or things that we've covered so far today?
One,
Yes.
the 10 years I've been there, right now in the last year or so, the quality of the drivers is really nice, or driver, or whatever.
Okay.
There was a time way back where you never had the same driver. And I know CDL drivers are hard to get, but we have right now are compliments to the guy
Great.
there. They treat us nice and we help him out.
Well,
He's there in a timely manner.
thank you for providing that feedback.
Driver's great.
Great. I know years ago, I can't say I'm an expert on our schedules for driving, but I know years ago it was less consistent, so we'd have drivers kind of doing a lot of different routes. It's my understanding now, and maybe others can chime in who know more, that we've created routes where the same drivers go to the same places, and that's intentional so that you don't have to explain every single month to a new driver, no, we actually need the pallets over there. So we've been working on some of these things.
Way back, there's one situation, guy backed the semi unloaded, couldn't get the lift back up. He didn't know nothing about that rig at all. We had to get a local mechanic up there with an electrical source. There he's got a CDL. He couldn't move that truck because he didn't know how to do it.
That's not good.
Things that pass.
Okay, well, even if things like that come up, please be sure to communicate them, whether it's we really enjoy getting that positive feedback so we can pass that on, but if there's also challenges, if your truck's not arriving on time or different things, let us know so that we can actively work to problem solve those things.
I would agree, drivers, great.
Good.
And two, is Second Harvest, are they maxed out in terms of the number of mobiles, or Or are you looking for opportunities in other areas? Where are you at on that?
I would say I'm going to give you a gray answer in that we are actively looking in the near future. Part of our strategic plan that Michelle mentioned is leveraging data. So we acknowledge as a food bank that we've been using these other sources of information, part of that being anecdotal information. But we know that there's a gap in what we know and maybe the true need for another mobile in certain communities. And so first, we'd welcome that from all of you. If you feel like you know, whether it's in your community or a neighboring community, if you think there's a gap, we would like to hear that from you. Then we're committing to moving forward, capturing better data to understand what those landscapes look like and if there's a need for mobile. My understanding is that if we identify that all those things truly do line up, there is potentially this appetite to increase mobiles. So it's really just dependent on the circumstances.
And one way we might do that, you remember before COVID, we used to track people's zip codes a lot, and we haven't done it very much. But I think if we're interested in, if you think like there might be a pocket where there's some extra support needed, we might come to your mobile and say, okay, this time take everybody's zip codes, and then we can see like how far are people coming. If people are driving from an hour away to come to your mobile, and there's 20 people that are doing this, then that shows us, ooh, that's a hotspot, and we should start.
I get people from Milwaukee and Waukesha driving an hour or an hour and a half to come to our mobile.
Yeah, it's really clear when you get the zip codes to look at it. It's not something that we have to do every time, which I'm sure you're happy about. Because you remember what it was like to count all those zip codes at the end and record those? That was another thing from the old ones. So we'll do it when it's strategic and we think we're really going to use the data.
Good question. Well, if there's no other questions on this, then we are going to go into a break. So just a time check. We're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so we can still plan to come back at 10:30. Again, there are restrooms, refreshments. If you'd like to go outside for a bit, feel free to go out these doors, which will be open, or the back doors. Just make sure to prop it or have a friend let you in. So.
I changed it.